Husband forced me to host his parents. I played the video evidence of his cheating during dinner. The pungent smell of garlic and rosemary filled the kitchen as I meticulously chopped vegetables for the third time that day. The first batch had been too chunky, according to Ryan. The second was inconsistently sized. My fingers ached from gripping the knife, but I couldn't afford another mistake. Not tonight, not with them coming. My phone chimed with a text. It was Ryan. Remember, my mother likes her meat medium, not medium rare. Don't screw this up. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and slid the chopped vegetables into a bowl. I'd been cooking since 6 a.m., had cleaned the entire house twice, and had even replaced all the hand towels with the embroidered ones his mother had given us last Christmas. The ones that made my skin itch but that she always checked for whenever she visited. It's just one night, I whispered to myself. One dinner. But we both knew that wasn't true. It was never just one dinner with Ryan's parents. It was a trial by fire. A judgment day where I'd inevitably be found wanting. The doorbell rang at precisely 7 p.m. I straightened my dress, the one Ryan had selected because it made me look more presentable, and plastered on my most convincing smile. The mask I'd perfected over 5 years of marriage settled comfortably into place. Ryan bounded down the stairs, suddenly transformed from the cold, distant man who'd barely looked at me all week into the doting husband. It was a metamorphosis I'd witnessed countless times, each instance more sickening than the last. There she is, he exclaimed, wrapping an arm around my shoulder as we approached the door together. My beautiful wife who's been slaving away all day to make this perfect for you guys. He squeezed my shoulder too hard. A silent warning. The door swung open to reveal Margaret and Howard Taylor, my in-laws of 5 years and critics for far longer. Margaret's eyes immediately swept over me, her lips pursed in that familiar look of disapproval. Darling, she said, air-kissing both my cheeks while somehow managing not to actually touch me. That dress is brave. Very youthful for someone your age. I was 32. Mom, doesn't she look gorgeous? Ryan interjected, his voice warm with an affection that never existed when we were alone. I keep telling her she could be a model. Howard grunted, handing me his coat without meeting my eyes. Place looks clean enough, I suppose. Where's the food? Something smells burnt. Nothing was burnt. Everything was perfect because it had to be. In the kitchen, just finishing up, I replied, maintaining my smile, though my cheeks already hurt. Please, make yourselves comfortable in the living room. I've prepared some appetizers. Let me help you, sweetheart, Ryan said loudly, following me into the kitchen. Once we were out of earshot, his smile vanished. My dad's right, something does smell off. Did you follow the recipe exactly? Yes, Ryan. Down to the last gram. Well, fix it, he hissed. And try to be more engaging. You're being cold. I turned away, focusing on the roast in the oven to hide the tears threatening to spill. 3 months ago, I might have argued back, but that was before I discovered the truth. Before I found the lipstick-stained receipts from hotels I'd never visited. Before I saw the late-night texts from work project. Before I installed the tracking app on his phone out of desperation and watched as he visited an apartment across town every Tuesday and Thursday while claiming to be at the gym. 3 months of knowing, of dying inside while maintaining this facade. 3 months of Ryan gaslighting me, making me question my sanity whenever I raised the smallest suspicion. Ready for the appetizers, I announced, carrying the tray into the living room where Margaret was already rearranging my carefully placed decorative pillows. Olivia was just telling me about her promotion, Ryan lied smoothly, though we both knew I hadn't spoken a word about work to him in weeks. She's too modest to brag, but they've given her more responsibility at the firm. Margaret raised an eyebrow. Is that so? Well, I suppose someone has to handle the administrative work. I was a senior financial analyst. Actually, I began, but Ryan cut me off. She's been working too hard, if you ask me. I keep telling her to take it easy. Maybe think about us starting a family soon. He winked at his parents. You know how badly I want kids. Another lie. Ryan had shut down every conversation about children since our second anniversary. Just last month, he'd called the idea of having children with me something we need to seriously reconsider. Howard perked up at this. Well, it's about time. Margaret and I aren't getting any younger, and we'd like grandchildren while we can still enjoy them. Olivia's just been so career-focused, Ryan said with a performative sigh, as if my career was a burden he nobly tolerated. But I support her. Always have. I swallowed hard, remembering how just last week Ryan had accidentally deleted an important presentation from my laptop, causing me to stay up all night recreating it. When I confronted him, he'd laughed and suggested I was becoming paranoid and unstable. "Dinner's almost ready," I said, desperate to escape the conversation. "I'll just check on the roast." In the kitchen, I leaned against the counter, my hands trembling. From my vantage point, I could see Ryan charming his parents in the living room, laughing and gesturing animatedly. The perfect son. They adored him, had always seen him as their golden child who could do no wrong. The successful lawyer, the devoted husband, the man who'd settled for someone like me. If only they knew. I glanced at my phone, checking the time. In exactly 90 minutes, dessert would be served. But it wouldn't be the chocolate mousse chilling in the refrigerator. My hand brushed against the small remote control hidden in my pocket. The trigger to the projector I discreetly mounted this morning while Ryan was at the gym. Next to it was a USB drive containing weeks of evidence, location data, text messages, and the final piece, video footage from the private investigator I'd hired last month, showing Ryan and his mistress entering and exiting the same hotel room where he'd taken me for our anniversary years ago. The perfect family dinner was about to become the perfect storm. I arranged the roast on our best serving platter, garnishing it exactly as Margaret had once instructed me. "Precision is everything, dear, though I don't expect you to understand that." My hands were steady now, my resolve strengthened by the knowledge that this would be the last time I'd endure their scrutiny and Ryan's two-faced performance. "Need some help, babe?" Ryan called from the living room, his voice saccharine. "No thank you, darling," I replied, matching his fake sweetness. "Everything's under control." For the first time in months, I wasn't lying. Everything was indeed under control, just not in the way any of them expected. I carried the roast to the dining table, the mask of the perfect, submissive wife firmly in place. But behind it, for the first time in years, I felt something close to excitement. "Let the show begin." "Shall we sit?" I gestured toward the dining table, set with our wedding china. The Evansett set that Ryan's mother had insisted we register for, but which had remained untouched in our cabinet for years. Margaret inspected her chair before sitting, running a finger along the edge as if checking for dust. "Well, this looks adequate," she said, adjusting her napkin on her lap. "Though I notice you've used the salad fork incorrectly, it goes on the outside, dear." I bit the inside of my cheek. The salad forks were precisely where they should be, but arguing would only make things worse. "Mom taught etiquette classes when I was growing up," Ryan explained to me, as if I hadn't heard this story a dozen times before. "She's got an eye for these things." Howard grunted as he took his seat. Back when people still cared about proper manners. Different world now. I served the food silently, careful not to spill a drop. As I placed Margaret's plate before her, she wrinkled her nose. "Is this rosemary? You know I find the smell overpowering." She looked at Ryan. "Didn't you tell her?" "I must have forgotten to mention it," Ryan replied, giving me a look that clearly said this was my fault. "But honey, Margaret mentioned it the last 3 times she visited." She hadn't. Not once. "I apologize," I said softly. "I can prepare something else if you'd prefer." No, Margaret sighed dramatically. "I'll manage. I wouldn't want to create extra work, especially since cooking doesn't seem to be your forte." Ryan chuckled. "She tries, Mom. That's what matters, right?" The way he said it, like I was a child attempting calculus, made my stomach twist. This was the same man who just last week had thrown away an entire lasagna I'd made because it had too much cheese, then ordered takeout and made me pay for it. "So," Howard began, cutting into his meat with surgical precision, "Ryan tells us your company's in having some financial troubles." "Layoffs coming," he said. My head snapped up. "What? No, that's not." "It's okay, honey," Ryan interrupted, reaching over to pat my hand condescendingly. "You don't need to put on a brave face. Mom and Dad understand how tough things are for you at work." My company had just announced record profits. I'd received a bonus last month. Money I'd secretly funneled into a separate account Ryan knew nothing about. "Actually," I attempted again, "the firm is doing extremely well." "Olivia's always been so optimistic," Ryan cut in, smiling at his parents. It's sweet, really, but her boss has been dropping hints. She's just in denial. Margaret clicked her tongue sympathetically. Well, if the worst happens, perhaps it's a blessing in disguise. You could focus on making a proper home for Ryan. He works so hard, comes home to this. She gestured vaguely around the dining room I had spent hours preparing. Ryan's career has always been the priority, Howard agreed, nodding. A man of his caliber needs support, not competition. Ryan preened under his father's praise. I keep telling her that, but you know how stubborn she can be. The three of them shared a knowing look that excluded me entirely, though I sat right there at my own table. The familiar feeling of invisibility washed over me, the sensation that I was merely a prop in the Ryan Taylor show. Remember that nice girl you dated in law school? Margaret asked suddenly. Rebecca something? Her father was a judge. Whatever happened to her? Mom, Ryan said with fake embarrassment, though I could see he was enjoying this. Ancient history, though I did bump into her recently. She's a partner at Sanders & Klein now. Still single, if you can believe it. Such a shame, Margaret replied, looking directly at me. She had such poise, the kind that's innate, not attempted. I took a large sip of wine, feeling the alcohol burn down my throat. Under the table, my fingers found the remote in my pocket again, gripping it like a lifeline. And how are things between you two? Howard asked, his tone suggesting he already knew the answer. Ryan mentioned there have been tensions. My hand froze midway to my glass. What exactly had Ryan told them? Every marriage has its ups and downs, Ryan answered for me, his hand finding mine on the table and squeezing it painfully. But we're working through it, right, babe? His eyes met mine, warning me to play along. This was a new twist, Ryan setting up a narrative of marital problems with his parents, likely preparing groundwork for when he eventually left me, portraying himself as the long-suffering husband who'd tried his best with a difficult wife. Of course, I replied automatically, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. Well, good for you for sticking it out, Howard said to Ryan, not me. Taylor men don't quit when things get tough. We fix problems. Margaret nodded. And Ryan's always been so patient. Even as a child. Remember when he waited 3 months to get that baseball glove he wanted? Howard reminisced, completely changing the subject as if I weren't present. Never complained once, just worked odd jobs until he earned it. Unlike his brother, Margaret added, always wanting the easy way out. They launched into family stories, excluding me from the conversation entirely. Ryan joined in enthusiastically, laughing at inside jokes and bringing up memories that I'd never been privy to, despite our years together. I sat silently, pushing food around on my plate. The criticism had evolved from direct attacks to something more insidious, complete erasure. I was a ghost at my own dinner table. As I refilled their wine glasses, I caught Ryan checking his phone under the table, a small smile playing on his lips. A text from her, no doubt. Dessert soon? He asked without looking at me, the impatience clear in his voice. Almost time, I replied, a calmness settling over me that I hadn't felt in months. Almost time indeed. I moved through the dining room with practiced grace, clearing the dinner plates while maintaining my facade of pleasant submission. Years of these dinners had taught me how to appear engaged while my mind retreated to a safer place. Tonight, however, I wasn't retreating. I was counting down. More wine, Margaret? I offered, holding up the bottle, her favorite Cabernet that Ryan had said I purchased despite its exorbitant price tag. Just a splash, she replied, though she extended her glass for what was clearly more than a splash. You know, Ryan used to date a sommelier in college. What was her name, dear? The elegant blonde with the family vineyard. Sophia, Ryan supplied immediately, not even pretending he had to think about it. She's running her family's wine business now. Imports to 5 countries. Such an ambitious girl, Margaret sighed. Wistfully, you always had a type before. Her eyes flicked toward me dismissively. I smiled tightly. How interesting. Ryan's never mentioned Sophia before. Hasn't he? Howard chuckled. She was around for quite a while. We thought she might be the one back then. Dad, Ryan said with a performative wince, though I could see the satisfaction in his eyes. He enjoyed this, the reminder that I had supposedly stolen him from a parade of superior women. Ancient history. Of course, Howard waved his hand. Though you do keep in touch with her, don't you? Facebook or whatever you kids use these days. Ryan took a long sip of wine. We grab coffee occasionally. Networking, you know how it is. Law and business often intersect. This was news to me. Another woman he'd been seeing behind my back? Or just another lie to impress his parents? At this point, I couldn't tell which was worse. Ryan's always been so loyal, Margaret declared, shooting me a pointed look. Even as a little boy, he'd never abandon a friend. Sticks by his commitments, no matter what. I nearly choked on my wine. The irony was almost too much. That reminds me of that time in high school, Howard began, launching into yet another tale of Ryan's supposed moral fortitude. When your baseball teammate was caught cheating on that math test, but you refused to rat him out even though it cost you your spot on the team for a game. Integrity, Margaret nodded solemnly. Can't teach that. Either you have it or you don't. Ryan basked in their adoration, playing the role of humble recipient. I just try to do the right thing, he said with affected modesty. That's all anyone can do. I excused myself to the kitchen on the pretense of checking the dessert, needing a moment away from the sickening display. Leaning against the counter, I drew several deep breaths, steadying myself. In my pocket, the remote control seemed to grow heavier, more insistent. When I returned, they'd moved on to discussing Ryan's latest court victory, a case I'd helped him prepare for, staying up late researching precedents while he claimed to be working but was actually with her. It was nothing, really, Ryan was saying. Just a matter of finding the right leverage. Finding leverage. How appropriate. You've always had a knack for that, Howard beamed. Proud father to golden son, finding people's weak spots. Ryan caught my eye and smiled with chilling insincerity. It's a gift. Such a shame you didn't follow your father into corporate law, Margaret lamented. Though I suppose criminal defense pays the bills. I'd heard this particular criticism dozens of times. Margaret had never approved of Ryan's choice to become a defense attendant, considering it beneath the Taylor family dignity. Speaking of bills, Howard turned to me suddenly. Ryan mentioned you've been spending quite a bit lately. My hand froze midway to my glass. Another lie. I'd been meticulously careful with money for months, saving whatever I could in my secret account. Shopping is her stress relief, Ryan said before I could respond. We're working on finding healthier outlets. He patted my hand condescendingly. Women and their shopping, Howard shook his head as if this explained everything wrong with the economy. Not all women, Margaret corrected. I've always been quite frugal, taught Ryan the value of $1. She certainly did, Ryan agreed. Mom could stretch a budget like nobody's business. They began another round of family mythology, tales of Margaret's supposed financial wizardry, Howard's business acumen, and the golden legacy. Ryan was continuing. The subtext was clear. I failed to measure up to the Taylor standard in every conceivable way. I sat silently, watching the performance unfold. Ryan's eager-to-please smile for his parents, Margaret's approving nods, Howard's hearty laughs, the perfect family tableau that had no real place for me. Remember when Ryan was just 7, Margaret was saying, and he saved every penny from his lemonade stand to buy me that Mother's Day brooch? Such thoughtfulness. Still wearing it, Howard noted, pointing to the gaudy pin on his wife's blouse. I knew even then our boy would make a woman very happy someday, Margaret continued, sighing dramatically. And he would have if he'd just... She caught herself, but the implication hung in the air. If he'd just married someone else, someone worthy. I dabbed my lips with my napkin. Excuse me, I think the dessert is ready now. Need help, honey? Ryan called after me, his voice syrupy with artificial concern. No, I replied, my tone finally steady and certain. I've got everything under control. As I walked toward the kitchen, I could feel the weight of the remote in my pocket. My hand closed around it, finger poised over the button that would change everything. It was time for the real show to begin. I've made a special dessert, I announced, returning to the dining room, empty-handed. Ryan's eyes narrowed slightly. Where is it? Coming right up, I promised, my voice steadier than it had been all evening. But first, I thought we might enjoy a little entertainment. Margaret's perfectly plucked eyebrows rose. Entertainment? We're hardly in the mood for party games, dear. Oh, this isn't a game, I assured her, reaching into my pocket and grasping the remote. Think of it more as a documentary, about family, about loyalty, about the value of honesty. Howard scoffed, exchanging a glance with Ryan that clearly said, "What is she going on about now?" Ryan cleared his throat. "Honey, why don't you just bring out the dessert? My parents are tired. They won't be tired after this," I promised. "In fact, I guarantee they'll be wide awake." Before anyone could object further, I pressed the button on the remote. Instantly, the wall behind me, which I had cleared of family photos that morning, illuminated as the hidden projector came to life. For a moment, there was just a blank screen. Ryan's expression shifted from annoyance to confusion. Then the video began to play. The timestamp in the corner read 2:17 p.m. Tuesday, just 3 weeks ago. The footage showed the entrance to the Westlake Hotel downtown, the same hotel where Ryan had taken me for our second anniversary. A familiar figure walked into frame. Ryan, dressed in the blue suit he claimed to wear only for important client meetings. He checked his watch, then his phone, before a woman approached. Tall, blonde, significantly younger than me. Ryan's face transformed, the same metamorphosis I'd witnessed when his parents arrived, but more genuine. His smile reached his eyes as he bent down to kiss her. Not a quick peck, but a lingering, intimate kiss that spoke of familiarity and comfort. The room went silent. Margaret's wine glass froze halfway to her lips. Howard's jaw clenched so tightly, I could see a muscle jumping in his cheek. And Ryan turned white, then red, then a mottled purple I'd never seen before. "What the hell is this?" he demanded, half rising from his chair. I held up one finger, indicating he should wait. "Keep watching. It gets better." The video continued, showing Ryan and the woman entering the hotel, his hand placed possessively on the small of her back. Then the footage cut to them exiting 3 hours later, disheveled but laughing, sharing another kiss before parting ways. New footage appeared, different day, same hotel, same woman, then another clip. Ryan entering an apartment building across town, emerging the next morning in the same clothes. More clips followed, a damning montage spanning months. Finally, audio began to play. A recorded phone conversation captured by the private investigator's equipment. "When are you going to leave her?" the woman's voice asked. "Soon," Ryan's voice replied. "Just need to make sure she doesn't get anything in the divorce. My lawyer says we need more evidence of her instability." "Your crazy wife," the woman laughed. "The one who doesn't suspect a thing." "She's too stupid to notice," Ryan's voice replied. "Always has been. My parents were right about her." The footage ended, freezing on a frame of Ryan kissing the woman goodbye outside her apartment building yesterday morning when he told me he had an early court appearance. In the crushing silence that followed, I could hear the grandfather clock in the hallway ticking. 1 second. 2. Margaret broke first. "Ryan," she whispered, her voice strangled. "What is the meaning of this?" Ryan shot to his feet, knocking over his wine glass. Red liquid spread across the pristine white tablecloth, bloodstain expanding across our marriage. This is obviously manipulated," he sputtered. "She's edited this somehow. Photoshopped or whatever." "Timestamps don't lie," I said quietly. "Neither does your credit card statement, which shows multiple charges to that hotel on those exact days and times." I pulled a folded paper from my other pocket and placed it on the table. "Your parents might be interested to know you've been using their anniversary gift to us, that generous check, to fund your affair." Howard seized the statement, scanning it with mounting horror. "The Westlake? 15 times in the last 2 months? She trapped me," Ryan shouted, his face contorted. The mask had fallen completely now, revealing the ugly truth beneath. "She's been cold, distant. She drove me to this." "Drove you to lie, to cheat, to plan to frame me as unstable?" I asked, my voice remaining calm. "The only thing I'm guilty of is believing you loved me." Margaret had begun to cry silently, mascara creating dark rivulets down her perfectly made-up face. "In front of your parents," she whispered. "You've humiliated us all." "Me?" Ryan's voice rose to a shriek. "She's the one showing this fabricate trash at a family dinner." "Is it fabricated, Ryan?" I turned to face him fully now. "Because I have the hotel receipts, the text messages, the email exchanges, the lipstick-stained collar I found in your gym bag that I had DNA tested. Yes, that's a thing regular people can do now. I have 6 months of evidence. Would you like me to keep going?" Howard stood up slowly, his face ashen. "Son, tell me this isn't true." Ryan looked from his father to his mother, then to me, like a cornered animal. For a moment I thought he might admit it, might show a glimmer of the man I once believed him to be. Instead, he pointed at me, hand shaking. "This is exactly what I was talking about. She's unstable. She's been spying on me, stalking me." "What kind of person does that?" "The kind who knows she's being betrayed," I answered simply. "The kind who's tired of being gaslighted and manipulated." I turned to his parents, whose perfect world was crumbling before their eyes. "There's plenty more evidence. Would you like to see it?" I've organized it chronologically. Margaret covered her face with her hands. Howard just stared at his son, decades of pride crumbling into disappointment. And Ryan, the golden boy, the perfect son, the lying husband, stood amid the wreckage of his double life, speechless for the first time since I'd known him. The dining room had transformed into a battlefield. Ryan stood at one end, his carefully constructed persona lying in tatters around him. His parents sat shell-shocked, like civilians caught in crossfire they never saw coming. And I remained standing calmly by the projector, no longer the invisible wife, but the orchestrator of this long-overdue reckoning. Margaret broke the silence first, her voice trembling. "How could you, Ryan? In the same hotel where you took your grandmother for her 80th birthday." Of all the betrayals to focus on, this was what bothered her most. I almost laughed. "It's not what it looks like," Ryan attempted, his lawyer voice emerging, smooth, reasonable, utterly false. "Olivia's been going through something, emotionally. These accusations." "We saw the video, son," Howard cut in, his voice hollow. "Unless you have an identical twin we don't know about, that was you." Ryan's strategy pivoted instantly. "Fine. Yes. I made a mistake. One mistake. After years of trying to make this marriage work with someone who 15 hotel visits is not one mistake," I interrupted quietly. "Neither is the apartment you rent for her under a fake name, nor the second phone you keep in your gym bag." Ryan's eyes widened. I'd never revealed how much I knew before. "You went through my things," he sputtered. "You see? This is exactly the invasion of privacy I've been dealing with." "When did it start?" Margaret asked, ignoring his protestations. Her mascara had created raccoon circles around her eyes, but she seemed beyond caring. "How long have you been living this double life?" Ryan's jaw worked silently, calculations visibly running behind his eyes. 14 months, I answered for him, starting with his firm's holiday party. "Her name is Jessica Winters. She's a paralegal at Westford and Associates, the firm that opposed Ryan in the Drummond case. She's 26 and she thinks Ryan is separated and finalizing his divorce." I paused. "She also thinks he owns this house, not that we bought it together." Howard made a strangled noise. "Is that true?" Ryan's silence was confirmation enough. "Show them the texts, Olivia," I suggested calmly. "The ones where you promised Jessica you'd take her to Paris for her birthday, using the money from your parents' anniversary gift to us." Margaret gasped, one hand flying to her pearl necklace. "Another gift from the Golden Sun," I recalled. "Our anniversary check? The one we gave you to renovate your kitchen?" Ryan's face contorted between rage and panic. "Mom, don't listen to her. She's twisting everything." "The kitchen renovation we mysteriously had to postpone?" I reminded her. "That money went to a romantic weekend in Napa Valley. I have the credit card statements and hotel reservation. Would you like to see those too?" "Enough," Ryan roared, slamming his fist on the table. Glasses jumped, sending wine splashing onto the tablecloth. "This is my house. You've made your point with your little ambush. Now get out." A deadly calm settled over me. "Actually, Ryan, it's our house. My name is on the deed, too. And according to our prenup, infidelity clauses work both ways. Your father helped draft it, remember? He insisted on protecting the Taylor family assets from gold diggers like me." I turned to Howard, whose face had aged a decade in minutes. Clause 7.3. Infidelity by either party results in the injured party receiving an additional 20% of shared assets and properties. I've already forwarded all evidence to my lawyer. You had a lawyer look at this?" Ryan stammered, his voice rising an octave. "Behind my back? The same way you consulted your lawyer about proving me unstable?" I asked. "Yes, I did. 3 months ago. She's been building the case while you've been building something else." Ryan's face flushed dark red. For a moment, I thought he might lunge at me. Instead, he turned to his parents, desperation taking over. Mom, Dad, she's clearly planned this for months. This calculating, vindictive side. This is what I've been dealing with. She's not the victim here. Margaret looked at her son with new eyes, seeing him clearly perhaps for the first time. Did you or did you not have an affair, Ryan? It's complicated. It's a yes or no question, Howard interrupted, his voice flat. The proud father was gone, replaced by a tired old man. Did you cheat on your wife? Ryan's shoulders slumped slightly, the first genuine reaction I'd seen from him all night. Yes, there is no but, Howard said, rising slowly from his chair. Your mother and I raised you better than this. You raised me to succeed, Ryan shouted, suddenly childlike in his outburst. To get what I want, to be a winner. We raised you to be honorable, Margaret whispered. Which part of lying to everyone in your life sounds like winning to you? Ryan turned to me, his handsome face ugly with hatred. This is your fault. You trapped me in this marriage, and now you're trapping me with this setup. I didn't force you to cheat, I said quietly. I didn't force you to lie. I certainly didn't force you to host this dinner tonight. That was all you wanting to parade your perfect life in front of your parents while systematically destroying mine behind closed doors. I looked at Margaret and Howard. I'm sorry you had to find out this way, but I'm not sorry for revealing the truth. The room fell silent again. Ryan stood frozen, his world collapsing around him. His parents remained seated, unable or unwilling to comfort their son for perhaps the first time in his life. I filed for divorce, I said into the silence. The papers will be delivered to your office tomorrow. My lawyer suggested a public place might be safer. Safer? Ryan's voice cracked. What? You think I'd hurt you? I met his gaze steadily. I think I don't know who you are anymore. And that means I don't know what you're capable of. The truth of this statement seemed to hit all of us at once. Ryan had been living a double life so convincingly that none of us, not his wife, not his adoring parents, had seen behind the mask until it was forcibly torn away. I think, Howard said heavily, standing and helping a trembling Margaret to her feet, that we should go. Howard helped Margaret into her coat, her hands shaking too badly to manage the buttons. The silence was deafening, broken only by Margaret's occasional sniffling and Ryan's increasingly agitated breathing. You can't just leave, Ryan finally said to his parents, his voice wavering between command and plea. We need to discuss this as a family. Howard turned to his son with eyes that had lost their sparkle of pride. I think enough has been said tonight. Dad, please, Ryan begged, a child again in the face of parental disappointment. She planned this. She set me up. Set you up to cheat repeatedly, to lie, to plan to declare your wife mentally unstable? Howard shook his head slowly. No, son. This is on you. I hadn't expected Howard to take my side. In all our years of knowing each other, he had never once contradicted Ryan or suggested his golden boy could be wrong. The shock of it seemed to hit Ryan physically, as though his father had struck him. I'd like the emerald earrings back, Margaret said suddenly, turning to me. The ones we gave you for your birthday, they're Taylor family heirlooms. Even now, her priorities were clear. I nodded calmly. Of course. I'll have them couriered to you next week, after I've removed my things from the house. I paused. They're in the safe. Ryan will need to open it for you, as he never gave me the combination. Another small deception exposed. Margaret's eyes flickered to her son before she looked away quickly, unable to bear the accumulating evidence of his character. We're going to your sister's, Howard told Ryan, not meeting his eyes. We'll talk someday, not tonight. Ryan watched helplessly as his parents moved toward the door, his entire support system abandoning him. The golden child left tarnished and alone. As Howard reached for the doorknob, I spoke up. Before you go, there's something else you should know. They paused, perhaps expecting another revelation of Ryan's misdeeds. Instead, I straightened my shoulders and looked them directly in the eyes. For 5 years, I've endured your criticism, your condescension, and your constant implication that I is somehow not good enough for your son. You've belittled my career, my cooking, my appearance, even the way I arrange flowers. You've treated me as an interloper in Ryan's life rather than his chosen partner. Margaret opened her mouth to object, but I continued. I don't expect an apology. I don't even expect you to acknowledge it. But I want you to know that despite everything, I never spoke ill of you to others. I never tried to come between you and Ryan. I respected your place in his life, even when you refused to respect mine in it. I took a deep breath. That respect wasn't earned, and it certainly wasn't reciprocated. So when you leave here tonight, know that you're not just losing a daughter-in-law, you're losing the only person in this room who still treated you with dignity despite receiving none in return. Howard's face flushed deep red. Whether from shame or anger, I couldn't tell. Margaret simply stared, her perfectly maintained facade cracking completely for the first time since I'd known her. Without another word, they walked out the door. The sound of it closing behind them felt like the period at the end of a very long, painful sentence. Ryan and I stood alone in the foyer, 5 years of marriage and lies between us. When he finally spoke, his voice was dangerously quiet. You've ruined everything. No, Ryan, you did that all by yourself. I moved toward the stairs. I'm packing an overnight bag. I've booked a hotel room. You have until tomorrow evening to decide which of your things you're taking with you. My lawyer will contact yours about the rest. You think it's that easy? He asked, a desperate edge in his voice. You think you can just walk away with half of everything after this stunt? I turned to face him one last time. I don't want half of everything, Ryan. I just want to be free of you. The prenup actually protects me quite well in cases of infidelity, I reminded him. Your father was very thorough when he drafted it. He never imagined his perfect son would be the one to violate its terms. Ryan's face contorted with fury. You planned this from the beginning. You've been gathering evidence, consulting lawyers. Yes, I admitted simply. Because that's what people do when they discover they've been betrayed. They protect themselves. I'll fight this, he warned. I'll drag it out for years. I'll make it so expensive you'll have to give up. I almost pitied him then. He still didn't understand. My firm made me partner last month, Ryan. The promotion you told your parents wasn't happening? It came through, with a substantial bonus and stock options. The shock on his face confirmed he hadn't known that he'd been so wrapped up in his affair and his lies that he'd missed the biggest achievement of my career. I can afford to fight, I continued. Can your reputation, when all of this evidence becomes part of the public record? He had no answer for that. The man who always had the last word finally found himself speechless. I climbed the stairs without looking back, each step feeling lighter than the last. In our bedroom, I quickly packed essentials into a small suitcase, clothes, toiletries, important documents I hadn't already secured elsewhere. As I zipped the suitcase closed, I caught my reflection in the mirror. For the first time in months, the woman staring back at me wasn't sad or angry or afraid. She was resolute, determined, free. I wheeled my suitcase down the stairs. Ryan was nowhere to be seen, though I could hear glass breaking in his study. Let him rage. His anger no longer had power over me. At the front door, I paused one last time, looking back at the beautiful house that had felt like a prison for so long. The perfect dinner table, now abandoned. The expensive wine spilled across the tablecloth. The projector, still glowing faintly on the wall. I closed the door behind me, stepping into the cool evening air, and for the first time in as long as I could remember, I took a deep, full breath.